just information. Okay. Got it, Carol? Still working on it? Teresa was going to try to door you, but I kept her from doing it. Door you. When you're riding your bike on the Layton Road yesterday evening. Yeah, we honked at you. I was showing her the back road way to get to Pablo, so that just in case road construction is too bad. She'd never been on. Well, she'd been on that road before, but she just couldn't remember where to head towards Pablo. You know, she'd gotten lost in Pablo before. That's right. Exactly. I think she'd gotten lost in Ronan before. Oh. All right, well, call the day's meeting to order. Jen, would you roll call, please?
Tom McDonald.
Here.
Len Tucci. Jennifer Finley. Jim Molitor.
Here.
Carol Langford. Harry Pitts. Bing Matt. Ellie Bundy. Martin Charlo.
Present.
Mike Dawson.
I'm here.
James Steele Sr.
I'm Lamps Jen. I'll start us out today with a prayer. Creator, we want to thank you for this day, this beautiful day we have before us. We pray for all of our families and all of our friends and all of our people of our lands that they have food and shelter before them. We pray for good decisions. We have great information that comes forward. We want to give special thanks for our good friends like the Missoula County Commissioners and the Missoula City Council members and the friends of the outdoors that help celebrate and are inclusive to all the things that we have before us. We do all these things in your name. Amen. I'm just a brief announcement. I'm going to have to exit at 11:30 for an interview, and then I'll be gone the rest of the day. Jen, on May 23rd, Council, do you have a full agenda yet? Can we not have an afternoon session? And then I can invite Missoula County Commissioners want to come up and meet with us about private meeting with those that are interested about Marshall Mountain. Okay. Any updates on the for Fairtrax Bridge? No, I don't. I think they're going to plan it better than before. So it probably would eliminate that in the future. Yeah. The footings weren't very deep, and so basically even frost heave loosens those up over the winter. No, the sign was fully intact. It just needs to be replanted. I don't think there was any damage to the face of the sign. Did you? None. It was like, you know, closing time, young guys, see who can lift the sign, you know, whatever, loose it, and then pull it out and toss it. Could have been a young girl, that's true. Okay, we have our minutes. The minutes from April 27th.
Motion to approve the minutes of April 27th.
Motion by Ellie to approve the tribal council minutes from April 27th.
Mr. Chairman, just one minor change on the paragraph where we're, visiting with the comptrollers. On there, it says Lem Tucci mentioned the importance of offering financial literacy training to tribal members. I would like to add to tribal members that just turned 18 years of age.
Thank you, Lynn. Definitely, that's what you were talking about. You? Second by Len, approval of the council minutes with changes for April 27th. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. All right, we have today's agenda. Any additional items people want to cover? Len has one. Any other items? Bing? Martin? Okay. Sue?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I need to leave today at noon, and for the record, Abby, I will be providing a presentation to St. Pat's Hospital in Missoula on MMIP.
Any other? Jen? Okay, Jennifer? Any other? I also will be checking out at 11:30 to do a interview, and we'll be gone for the rest of the day on personal leave. All right. So I would entertain a motion for today's modified agenda. Motion by Martin. Second by Jimmy. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. All right, Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. During yesterday's discussion, I brought up the issue with tribal member Wayne Left Hand, who currently is an employee at Preservation. Today, I'm asking council for a temporary waiver of a personnel policy to allow Wayne Left Hand to exceed 360 hours of leave share. So,
Mr. Chair, or just, could we make it very specific for him, not just a general waiver of so waive it specifically for just him?
Yeah.
Really sign up for the
Disability. Yeah, contingent upon,
Carol?
Curious if there's something else that could be done. You know, his wife was working for us and then she got ill and now he's in that situation. Is there something else like an administrative leave? I mean, to me, does he get leave? Is he able to obtain leave from that?
Carol, just like Cheryl, he's on leave share. So he's exhausted that amount for the.
I understand that.
Yeah. But so when you go for a long distance like Cheryl, then you put in for the medical disability,
Yeah, I
which is
understand that too.
permanent. And I believe that's his pathway he would need to take. If he started that process or not. So I think that's Len's motion is to extend his leave sharing until they finalized his medical disability insurance.
or goes back to work.
Or goes back to work.
Yeah.
Stay there. Stay there. No, I think they got it. Do you remember that? Do you remember Kay Decker, if we did administrative leave or did we do leave? share?
That was leave sharing.
No, that was just leave share.
We extended her leave sharing. Same thing for Kate Decker.
Yep, same thing.
I will stop arguing.
Second by Len. Or Martin, excuse me. Motion by Len, second by Martin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Okay, thank you, everybody. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Bing?
Thanks for bringing that up again, Lynn. I was worried we just dropped it yesterday and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm an old diehard or something because I've been getting phone calls. There's been issues, been things brought up on Facebook about the Salazar money and also the Cobell money I got on her now. They got them kind of mixed up. And this little resolution here that Greg brought into us last week, I wish could be put out to the members so they know that there was no mandate for the funds to be distributed to them on a per capita basis. And or I'm going to bring it up that I'll make a motion to approve to go ahead and pay this money out. I know what Greg said it was being paid for, used for, the interest. But I think we'll have, after thinking about it over and over again since last week, I think there'll probably be enough money out of those dividend checks that we get to cover that interest, for this money, because this money's 8 million and we get something like 14 million, 15 million from the dividends that our corporations pay into us. And like I said, I've been getting a lot of calls. It's been on Facebook. I talked to my sister this morning. She said it was on Facebook again this morning, and I got a couple of calls yesterday and a couple text messages on it. And if I like to have our people upstairs to let the people know that this is not funds to be distributed. But I am going to make that motion to go ahead and to distribute it out. That way if it's voted down, that's fine. But I'm going to make motion to put it out, pay it out, because it's like I said, I've been getting a lot of calls for it. I think I stirred up a hornet's nest by bringing it up. But I'm going to go ahead and go through with it. After last week, we heard from Greg about it and stuff, and I was going to drop it. But with all the calls I've been getting and all the text messages I've been getting, emails, now on Facebook, I think they are expecting a payout. And like I said, I think I'll go ahead and make that motion to have that Salazar money paid out. So, Mr. Chair, I want to make that motion to have the Salazar money paid out to the members. And if we can get it out by the 1st of July, that's fine. If we can't get it out, that's fine too. But I want to make that motion, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Motion by Bing to pay out the remaining balance of the Salazar money account by July 1st. Second by Jimmy. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Yeah, so how much money would this be per person? Because I was gone on Tuesday.
It'd be about
$1,000.
$1,000 a piece because there's 8-point-some-odd million in that account.
Mhm.
The balance is used to fund primarily our language programs for the interest. Yep, go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, not everybody was here last week, right? And so I think Greg's here. I think he can almost, because I think they all have to be informed on what the outcome is, or if we do the payout. I think everybody needs to understand the impact. So if we could, Mr. Chair.
Yep, Greg.
Greg.
Come on up, Greg. Recap.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of council. There are a couple of things I'm hearing and I want to clarify for the group. Mr. Matt mentioned that the dividends of the corporate dividends that are coming in are already earmarked and spent inside of each and every budget. If Jennifer has access, I think I can load up that presentation and go over those details at a high level. But the dividends that we receive from corporations in the current and upcoming fiscal year are already allocated to fill holes in the budget. The general fund budget starts out at about $66 million. The anticipated revenues are about 33. And so we rely on reserves or corporate dividends to make up the difference to meet the needs of the current fiscal year. Those dividends amount to about 23 million in the current fiscal year, leaving a gap of about $10 million. So those dividends are already allocated into the current general fund budget. The revenue or interest that's generated from the loans inside of the dedicated trust, those would be loans to EKI, to gaming, Big Arm and Big Arm has been paid off. Quatucknuck and Grey Wolf Peak collectively generate about $1.2 million worth of revenue on an annual basis. The investments in the portfolio also generate interest income. Thank you. And I beg your pardon? The allocation of those funds is as follows. The dedicated trust programs that are funded directly out of the interest earnings on the portfolio are listed here. As Mr. Chairman mentioned, there are language programs in Kusum School, the powwow celebrations, etc. And you might remember, I brought this up in our last discussion, Ms. Finley, that during the budget discussion in August of last year, Two Eagle River School brought to the attention that the language programs at the school had not been funded through their funding. And this $136,000 is an example of using dedicated trust resources to fund those types of requests on a discretionary basis. And that's just a specific example that I raised in the last meeting.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
So I see on here in Kusum, Kootenai language program, Salish language program, powwow celebrations, money for donations, Salish language conference, Kootenai language conference. So if this money was gone, would there be other funds to cover these things?
They would require other programs to receive less funding, that we would have to budget those funds away from another program that's receiving discretionary funds. And that would be entirely up to your discretion. During the budget development process, the budget director, Ms. Sweeney, will bring to the table the anticipated revenues for the upcoming year. They are not meaningfully different in the current upcoming budget discussion as they were from the last. So my understanding of this and the upcoming budget development process is that we'd be reallocating money from other programs in order to cover the expenses that would be left uncovered by taking principal out of the dedicated trust fund in order to make a distribution. I can illustrate what that looks like here. Here are the interest incomes that are coming in. The interest revenue is about 2.3 million against a budget of 2.7 million. There's about 239,000 of liquid and available funds ready to make that gap payment. About 4 weeks ago, I invested $6 million of free capital or free cash inside the dedicated trust at an average rate of return of about 4.5%, and that makes up the difference. So the funds are fully invested to meet the interest and liquidity needs of the obligations of the current fiscal year that are attached to the dedicated trust. Removing principal would take away from those interest-bearing instruments that create the liquidity to solve those current obligations. So we would need to find funds in other areas to cover those.
So does that potentially mean if other budgets got cut from other departments, that some departments would have to downsize their personnel and lose positions, potentially?
Yeah, use the mic.
I do know, like, before I left contracts and grants, that both Kootenai language and Salish language received, a couple of new grants that they hadn't received. They were only receiving, I think it was the MILP grant from the state, but I think Kootenai language got a grant from the college, and it was a fairly large amount. I'm not sure on the amounts, but I would have to get with Derry from upstairs. But they are like two new grants that came through, so both of them got those. But I would have to get with Derry on that to see the amounts and the funding sources, so.
Any other questions? Yeah. Go ahead, Carol.
I'm trying to see where the connection that Bing's trying to make with this money. So what you're saying is that the money that comes into dividends is what you want to pay out. And that connection is that the money was lent to these corporations and now is being paid back, and this is what's coming in? Is that the connection? Okay. Some of it? Okay. My only concern is that if we spend it, it's gone. And I have one other thought on, I think it was Lynn who mentioned it, and I asked the question about tribal credit. But if we start draining all these funds and we come to a serious situation, I don't know if the debt ceiling, what kind of impact that could have, but I just don't know. Putting future generations at risk and making decisions for the future by spending today, spending too much today. I know people need it. Me and Jimmy had a discussion this morning about, how come these things that we say need to get done aren't getting done? I mean, a guy had a shower approved years ago, and to this day still has not got a shower. And now they can't find the paperwork, and we start from square one again. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I feel there's obstacles, but also I don't know if I can put future generations, because I'm gonna, when my time's up, I'm gonna pass the torch, and somebody else is gonna be left with what's in the wake of my decision making. And do I really want to leave us in a dire straight situation? Nobody gave it to me in that way. I certainly don't want to pass it on that way. And I don't know if this will even create that, but it worries me. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Carol. Martin?
I think someone that we value and really trust an opinion on too is Ruth. And I think Ruth was here, not sure when this was. No, this is before that. And we were talking about sustainability of our organization. And we made some changes that truly aren't sustainable, as is. And I agree with Carol. It's, we can't mortgage our future for short-term gains. And that was something I said a lot during COVID as well. I mean, we paid out so much money over the last 3 years. And unfortunately, our membership has just started to expect it. And we up here as leaders need to sometimes explain to people how these impacts really affect our, not even our futures, our kids' futures and their kids. And hopefully, by then we figured out enrollment, we actually still have a thriving tribe that is growing and not getting smaller. And something like this, it just doesn't work long term. And you know, same here. I'm not trying to take money out of people's pockets. I mean, I'm sure all of us could use it, but I'm not going to take money out of, you know, my grandkids and their grandkids and looking that far down, because that's the impact that this will have. You know, if we don't have money to invest and we can't get interest, things are going to suffer. And I think we were in that boat at one point in the last 15 years that we were getting really close, and that was scary. I think when we bought EKI, that was scary. But we're still growing, and EKI is going to be one of those ones that if we do it right, will really create dividends. Gaming's the same way. Record revenues, if we do things right, those will continue to grow. So not going to take away our ability to invest and grow for a one-time payout that will be gone within a week. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Go ahead, Jennifer, then Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, when I look at the list of things that this money currently funds, they're all cultural programs. And we're always talking about how important culture is. And, you know, and I think in our own individual ways, we all have different ways of supporting the culture. And I think part of what I want to do with my position here is in my own way support decisions that help support the culture bearers of our community, because I think that's really important. And those people have to pay their bills. The people who are our culture bearers, our knowledge keepers, and the preservers of our language. And so much depends on them. And I don't want to do anything that diminishes that. And I know that, you know, inflation is real. COVID had an impact on a lot of us financially. And I know that everybody could use $1,000, but if we do this, there's a possibility that some people could lose their jobs, that some people would no longer be able to support their families, just so we could have $1,000. And so, you know, I think part of being a tribe is sometimes we have to look at what's the best for everyone, not just for myself. Because of course I would love another $1,000, but you know, I also want to support our language programs and our culture programs. And this is a really hard choice. You know, it's a really hard dilemma. But I think supporting the culture is really important, and funneling money into it and funding it is really important too. And thank you. That's my comment.
Thanks, Jennifer. Mike, and then Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg, how much principal is expected to be returned this year and say next year on that?
I know that EKI's expected principal return based on their payment schedule is somewhere between about $600,000 and $700,000. They've made discretionary returns of principal to the tune of about $1 million per year since renegotiating their loan out of their financial success. I don't have the amortization schedule in front of me on Quatucknuck and Grey Wolf, but it is the terms of the loan take them out to at least 2040. So during a normal amortization schedule during the early years, the return of principal is de minimis on that amortization schedule.
Len?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. You know, the fact of the matter is that being Matt, you would not be doing your job if you did not address this. It needed to be addressed. Your constituents were continuously inquiring about it. So as we just move forward, let's just go through the vote. If it passes, great. If it doesn't, Bing can report back to his constituents that he addressed it, and he can go from there. But right now, I think that's where we're at, and that's Bing was only just doing his job.
Thank you, Len. Jimmy?
Yeah, kind of agree with what Leonard just said. I seconded the motion because I'm getting the same calls that Bing is. You know, it's been going on. In fact, it's been going on for a lot of years. The Salazar money's been an issue for a long time. In fact, back in the day when I was on council before, I was one of the four that lost that position because of the Salazar money. They didn't get to 100%. And so, you know, it's been an ongoing issue with me. I'd like to see it either figure out what we can do with it, take care of it right now. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But we're facing the issue. I mean, let them know, you know, we're ready. I mean, take the vote.
Thank you, Jimmy. Bing? Terry? Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you. Greg, I understand the dividends have been earmarked, but was all of the money lent out? I thought there was a certain amount still sitting in there that wasn't invested.
The entire portfolio, with the exception of roughly the $235,000, is fully invested. It's a mandate of the investment policy in order to keep those funds working and active. Some of them are lent out to corporate entities. Some of them are in government securities. That is a mandate. To let the money sit fallow or to be unprotected is not consistent with the investment strategy.
Go ahead, Bing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going through this deal you handed out the other day, the dedicated trust fund in the events of the loans are coming in, you're getting over $2 million a year just from the interest on these loans. So, isn't that enough interest to cover these? It looks to me like it's 2.7 million total, or if you have here in this other sheet here with for the inclusive language and whatnot. That's almost enough money right there to cover for the year. You know, and $2 million a year off of these loans that we're getting from gaming, EKI, and from Quatuck and Grey Wolf. You know, it's that's quite a bit of money, I think, itself. You know, but maybe not quite the 2.7 million, but you know, the get out to vote and the donations and communications and everything else you have here listed here is not part of our cultural deal that we pay. So, you know, like I say, that, you know, that's what bothered me about it. Not going through here, I looked at this thing I don't know how many times. And then hearing from the people, you know, it's trying to tell them what this is, you know, and they get upset, and you know, they say, well, they borrow that from us, and it will be put back, like Terry said, you know, but it has nothing been put back in that account. So anyway, that's my complaint about the whole thing. Like I say, you know, and I guess I was going to let it go, you know, after our meeting last week. I was going to let it go, but after I've heard from the members, and especially the last 3 or 4 days, I've been getting text messages and calls and everything else. And then going through this pamphlet that you put out, you know, I would think it'd be a good idea to let the people know that there is no money, or go ahead and pay the damn thing out. So anyway, that's my complaint about the whole thing, Greg. And like I said, I apologize to you last week for keep bringing this up, but you know, when you get members on your tail and stuff like this, well, you got a job to do, you know, and that's what I'm trying to do, is just do my job. It's not because it was election year. It's just where I kind of am. I could told any instance, I'm not doing this for election year, you know? So it's a whole different deal, you know, it's for them, not for me.
Point of clarity, at least in my opinion, the Salazar money is for all of our people in perpetuity, not for the people that are just present today. And the interest is really critical for us for our operation, our investments. If I would have been on council the day this came in, I would have set this all aside for all of our people in perpetuity. I would have set up a retirement fund for our citizens, because the most vulnerable people that we have, of course, are our youth, but our seniors that are no longer able to be in the workforce. We could have had our own Social Security fund from this fund that would have been there as a trust fund forever. But we chose to give out half of it to our membership to use for whatever they needed at that point in time. Some of them desperately needed the money, some of them didn't. But I think that this lost resources was a payout for mismanagement for those people that have gone from today, that missed out, and for those people yet to be born. So I think it's as true leadership, it's our responsibility to make sure that this funding is spent to the wisest and best way we can. And I certainly would not vote for giving out the small remaining balance that is critical to our annual budget at this point in time. Carol?
I think you pointed out the obvious and the misconception about this money. And it was for people in the past and currently. And hopefully we do the best job we can so we have a future. And so,
Well, I think the important thing, and this is oh, sorry, go ahead. Carol.
but I was just going to say that message needs to come out not just once, continually, because that's why Bing's getting the questions that he's getting. And I'm with Len. He needs to get a response back to his people. And if he doesn't, they're going to call you on the carpet and say, well, why didn't you just bring it up for a vote? Well, that's what you're doing. So, yeah, it's a tough situation to be in, but for me, it's maybe not as hard as I make it to be.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, absolutely. The way we look at this is to increase our annual per capita when we can afford to do so. And this council, I appreciate, has done that due diligence, and we have been able to do that. Over the last 2 years, we gave out $79 million in additional unrestricted access funds through the CARES and ARPA and our increase in per capita. That's very significant. That is not sustainable. That is something that is not going to happen in a continuation fashion. So that's an important thing. I agree with Bing that we need to maybe have Greg put together a short course that we can publish in the Chartcoosta identifying how this is a critical funding for our annual budget, and how we've been looking at increasing services as we can. So, any other items? Go ahead, Ellie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Bing, for bringing this forward today. I am of the thinking, as several other council members, that I feel like it's fiscally just irresponsible at this point to jeopardize these programs and other cultural items that are on the list for a one-time payout that, while I would absolutely love to give members $1,000, I don't know that this is the money to do it until we find other pots of money to supplement those programs. I don't want to just jeopardize them and throw them out the window for a one-time payout. We did raise per capita. We did have the ARPA payouts. Maybe looking at the per capita increase possibility again, as opposed to a one-time $1,000 payout, could be more sustainable, because then you'd be looking at an increase then of what, $300 if we raise it 100 per member. Maybe there's ways to look at that in smaller bits, but that make it longer, sustainable for a longer period of time. But for those reasons, I wouldn't be able to support this payout at this time. I'd appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Ellie. Any other discussion? Motion by Bing, seconded by Jimmy. We'll take a vote. All those in favor of the motion, show of hands. 4-4. Mike, Jimmy, Len, and Bing. Those opposed? Terry, Jennifer, Tom, Ellie, Martin, and Carol. Motion fails to pass. Thank you, Bing. Thank you, Greg. I guess you're, well, no, we still have more to go.
I'm not going far.
Martin,
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and yeah, thank you, Bing. I know this is something that, just through our discussions, it's hard for you to do, and I appreciate it, because we're getting the same calls and questions, and I think one thing that, we keep saying over and over is we need to educate membership, because once you explain the membership, we really dummy it down, like I needed to do to understand it. They just dismiss it, and they just kind of, okay, agree. So, the one thing I don't want to bring up to you guys is just kind of hopefully a quick approval. I think October 9th is Indigenous Peoples Day, and the event yesterday in Missoula that was helped by Missoula County, City of Missoula, the Downtown Parks Association, or not the Parks Association, the Downtown Association would like to do a cultural event on every year at Terrace Park, and so they offered to support an Indigenous People Day powwow. It'd be Monday, October 9th, I believe, if I got the dates right, and it'd be, the event we did for Bear Tracks, obviously it wouldn't be to that scale, but it'd just be a powwow standalone event. And I felt that that was pretty well received. If we would promote that more, I think we probably could have more people attend as well. So just wanted to put that out there. If you guys would want to support that, there are funds left over from the Bear Tracks that Missoula County held, and so that'll be most of the payment for rentals and things like that. And then obviously maybe we can sponsor some of the other parts of it. So just kind of throwing that out there. And then the other thing is the elders meeting, SQCC elders meeting is tomorrow. And big is today. So you guys, after we get done early, we can get back on schedule. Go down to the feed at Mission at the Longhouse and enjoy some cultural food. Thank you.
thanks, Martin. Okay, Jennifer.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a brief trip report. I just want to be transparent about any and all traveling that I do on behalf of the tribes. So last Monday and Tuesday, I was in Helena at the Governor's Conference on Tourism, and there was staff there from 3 Chiefs and the Bison Range Gift Shop. I felt like they represented us very well there, and we talked about reconstituting the Flathead Reservation Tourism Committee to promote our own tourist entities to increase money for the membership. So I felt like it was a good conference, and that's where I was last Monday and Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Ellie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to do a reminder announcement that this Saturday, May 6th at SKC, we are hosting or collaborating on a project. It's the run walk. It's a 5K run walk to support MMIP. Funds raised will partially help support the CSKT MMIP Victim Services Assistance Fund. We're asking folks to just wear red in solidarity. Registration begins at 8:30 to 9:30, and then we'll start with the welcome at 10 o'clock. Just ask that folks come and join, and you can do part of it, none of it at all, just come be a part of the group and participate. So hope to see you there. It's on Saturday, May 6th. Registration 8:30 to 9:30, the welcome at 10. And we'll do a closing ceremony at 12:30 at SKC, yeah. Yeah, at the gym parking lot, yeah.
Thank you, Ellie. Martin, just one question on the Indigenous People Day powwow. Was there a committee? Is there a committee formed?
As of right now, it is me and probably Commissioner Strohmeyer and Chet. And so, yes, more than welcome. I would welcome a lot of people. I'm probably going to volunteer a few people that helped last year, Jen and Jay Blue. So
I wonder if we could set up a GoFundMe thing for that.
it could be great to do. have a big contest for one day.
Oh, yeah, I'd certainly help you with that. It was a great event, and I love that, having that right there.
I think one of the big things was more food vendors was a big ask.
Carol?
Yeah, I didn't raise my hand when you asked who all had something today, but the spay and neuter clinic was, last, Saturday. And it was a very good turnout, little few issues in the morning, but yeah, it was a good turnout. And you know, the tribal council didn't give a donation to that. I was wondering if we could give $1,000 to it. Because right now they're in the middle of their fundraiser. And I've reached out to a number of entities, which, finally, Mission Valley Power did come through with the help of Teresa, thank God. And then SKC is gonna give something, but the president is gone this week, so when she gets back, she's gonna make a contribution, but couldn't get any of the others, and I'm still gonna probably try to get Chad to give something if he can, you know, but in order for them to raise money, they need to show that they've already, you know, have a pretty good pool, and it sounds like they've raised 6,000 so far, but they need another 7,500 to cover everything, and so I'm hoping that maybe the council could give 1,000.
Do you have a donation form that we could fill out for it?
I do have their letter that Jen sent out to all the corporations that,
Could you use that, Jen, for the donation? Okay, thank you.
thank you.
All right, anything other than that? Greg, come on up.
I think that was the only thing on their agenda.
Thank you for being here early. No.
It's my pleasure, and we hope to get you right back on schedule. This will be,
You're a miracle worker. I can see that.
we'll do our best. I'm joined this morning again by Amelia Adams, our cash flow and investments manager. We were approached by Glacier Bank to bring some additional funds into a new account with them at a very competitive interest rate. It would be fully protected by the FDIC based on our pledging agreements, and the resolution we have before you is a request for approval to open up a new account with Glacier Bank in the name of the Tribal Health Department. This would be under the third party collections title. And it would be a segregated portfolio. It would earn a very competitive rate of interest. It would be liquid funds, and it would be totally accessible at any time. And it would be part of our protected portfolio with Glacier Bank.
Any questions? Pretty straightforward. Motion by Martin to approve the resolution authorizing the third-party collections checking account at Glacier Bank resolution. Second by Ellie. Any further discussion? Pardon? Yes.
We will be funding the account with $5 million, and the rate right now is at about 4.3%, which is very competitive.
Tell me how this works then. You're putting $5,000 in there. But FDIC, does that still cover that amount? I mean, maybe I got it all confused with a loan or.
You're asking very good questions. The intention is to put 5 million of the third party collection dollars there, and for them to be fully FDIC protected. Our relationships both with Eagle and with Glacier Bank require them to have what are called pledged securities on hand to cover our entire balance, which means that they have segregated in US government securities the balance equal to what our total deposit is. So they will be holding for us those funds, keeping us fully protected.
Also, me and Rick went to a CDFI thing in Missoula a couple of weeks last week. And we met Dan Lawson, who is the CEO of Clearwater Credit Union, formerly Missoula Federal Credit. And he wanted to have coffee with us, but I think they're talking about expanding onto the reservation. I don't know, there's a lot of tribal members, I'm sure, that use Clearwater Credit Union. I'm one of them, so he was happy to hear that, but that might be something in the future too, I don't know.
We are always looking for ways to develop new relationships through the largesse of the portfolio.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, show of hands. Unanimous. Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a process that this funding could go to the banks that lend to our people? More so than spreading that clear out through the country?
The short answer is yes. At my last evaluation, there are 9 tribal-owned entities that are tribally owned that we can put deposits with, and that would be exposure of up to $250,000 at those member banks. We are constantly looking throughout the Mission Valley for other relationships in order to deepen them through either deposit or credit relationships. Did you have some in mind, sir, that you'd like for us to recommend or look at?
I was just thinking of all the communities such as Hot Springs and stuff that are off the grid that are they in a position to receive some of this help?
The financial institutions in Hot Springs? Is that what you're asking, sir? I'm not familiar with any standalone financial institutions or branches, but I will certainly look into it for you, and I'll let you know what I find. Parenthetically, you mentioned Valley Bank, ma'am. I have been in contact with Valley Bank on several occasions while some of the corporations have reached out to them for credit facilities and for lending, and I've offered to make large secured deposits to build better, deeper business relationships with them, and I continue to do that at every chance I get.
Thank you, Greg.
I got a question, Greg.
Yep, go ahead, Lynn.
Greg, where are we with the dump fees?
So this morning, I've kind of checked for all of the programs to get those dump fees in all of the local communities. I'm working with Tom Johnson to coordinate with the elders program to get the list of elders by the end of this week to get those processed with Connie at the dump fee, so that we're going to start bringing those in on an as collected basis, that we are in process there. I do owe another follow-up phone call to housing to supplement their home sites, and I'll make sure I follow up on them today.
In regards to the dumpsters in those home sites, did we find a solution for that? Are we getting additional dumpsters, or are they going to start dumping them on a more closer schedule?
I need to follow up with Jody on that to find out the best way to complement that. My preference, if I ran the zoo, would be to add more frequent dumpings because of the way in which they fill up so quickly. But we're trying to negotiate a schedule on that.
Okay, and also, were they planning on putting dumpsters in Elmo?
I'll find out.
Can you follow up on that? And if not, can we get some up there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, just a clarification on those dumpsters at Jody Place. Me and Ellie are on the housing board, and I think that's just something they conduct every spring. It's not like they're gonna be putting these out there for people to have long-term. So if you're thinking of something else like long-term like that, that's probably your own deal.
I'm trying to address the need as quickly and as efficiently as we can in the short term manner, and I think that we'll develop a longer term strategy along the way. Thank you, though. Thank you for your input.
Thank you, Greg. Chauncey.
Thanks, Greg.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of council. My agenda request starts on page 5. Okay, thank you. I also have a representative from the Flathead Lakers. Introduce yourself. Sure.
Good morning, Council. My name is Kate Sheridan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Flathead Lakers.
So this gender request is for a collection permit to sample E. coli bacteria on, I think there's 9 beaches on the reservation. Information would go into a online website called the swimguide.org. And it would be kind of informational for the public to understand if there's high levels of E. coli bacteria at these beaches so that they can plan accordingly. E. coli bacteria is a good indicator of the quality of the water. So if there is high instances of E. coli bacteria, they can get notified and possibly, maybe not go swimming that day because of that level. So we're looking for approval of a collection permit for the Flathead Lakers to go out and sample 9 beaches on the reservation, I would say 3 times.
We sample 10 times. We start in the 4th of July and continue through Labor Day because we want to hit the high swimming season, tourist season.
And so we approved this collection permit in the past. The flow swimmers, Mark Johnston, used to collect these samples, and now the Flathead Lakers are doing this work. So it's great work, and we support this. So we're looking for approval.
Thank you, Chauncey, and welcome, Kate. Good to see you again. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd make the motion to approve the collection permit at Lakers.
Motion by Martin to approve it, second by Mike. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor? Unanimous. I expect the Flathead Lakers to be out there swimming all year round like Mark did, sampling.
Well, we'll certainly work on that. We started on Sunday. We did our first team swim. The water's great.
Question about Mark, is he move away or is he still involved?
He's still involved, yeah. We've just kind of transferred it. We actually have a Big Sky Watershed Corps member who will be sampling all the beaches, and part of it too is that we've extended it beyond the south part of the lake all the way up to the north side. So we're sampling, I think, 16 beaches in total now and have a relationship with the state park. So it's becoming a full-time job on Monday. So Mark needed more time for swimming.
Great, appreciate your work, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, boy, look at that, right on schedule. Okay. Let's go ahead. Renee and Lisa.
Good morning, Renee, are you on? I am here. Sorry, I was running a little late. I guess we can just give some introductions. I'll let Renee take the lead. Okay, good morning, Chairman, members of council. We are here to have the HR consultant that was selected for the providing HR services to the tribe on the call today. They wanted to meet with council and give an overview of their project. The individuals that will be on are Jessica Purdy, Ada Bickert, and Lori Battaglia. I don't know if she's going to join or not. I got an email that she's out of the office until the 2nd. So I don't know who's going to take the lead, Ada or Jessica.
Hi, Renee. This is Ada. I will get started. Lori will not be with us today. Jesse is also here. So I'm going to share my screen and then we'll share with you some information about our project. Okay. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for having us here today. I'm Ada Bickert and I'm an organizational effectiveness and change management consultant with Aligned at Work. And Jesse, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Ada. I appreciate it. Thank you all for having us here today to talk about this. I'm Jessica Purdy. I am the CEO of FIC Human Resource Partners. I work closely with Aligned at Work. In this particular project, I'll be doing most of the HR policy work and also helping to administer the organizational culture quality audit that is part of the discovery process for Aligned at Work.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. And so I will focus more on some of the discovery conversations that we'll be having with you, the council, as well as some of the leaders. And so what I'll do today is take you through an overview, a quick overview of the whole discovery process. And then Jesse will jump in and share with you about the organizational culture quality audit that she will be administering for you to gather information from throughout the tribal government. So the discovery process, the real goal of that, whenever we get involved with a client, what we want to do is gain an understanding of the real issue before we jump into all the work of the project. So we can be clear about what do we feel would be the best solutions that would get us to where you want to go. And so we'll show you what that process looks like. So what we heard is, we always listen to what is it that the organization we're working with is really interested in achieving. And what we heard from you is there's some work around your policies and procedures from a human resource perspective, and maybe a look at how do you really impact your culture in the way you want to, the culture of the organization, the tribal government, the ways you work. And what does that look like now? How do you save the best of what's there? And what else would you like to be thinking about as you move into the future? And so the way we do that is we say, well, what is the current state? What are all the important things to understand about it? And then over to the right side, then what might the desired state look like? What are the things that you all care about? What are the things that some of the employees care about? And so how does that take shape into your future vision? Then we want to look at what's the gap between those two? Where do we get from here, the current state, to that desired future state? And some of the things we'll look at to be able to do that are, do we fully understand the scope of what it will take to get to that future state? Do we fully understand the vision? And then what are all the potential obstacles to success, and propose next steps based on that? So, when we think about this discovery phase, just to quickly show you, it's part of our overall process of creating inclusive cultures. And what we would call this part of the explore phase. So now we're taking a close look at what is it that we need to know to be able to move forward. And then we'd also, as part of the discovery process, end with going into the ignite stage, which is where do we bring everybody together, agree on what is the best path forward, and really get that commitment to begin. And so that's where this discovery phase is focused. Okay. And so to take a bit of a closer look into the discovery phase and what's accomplished there, one of the main things is to take a deeper look at your organizational culture, your leadership style, your teams, and what they most care about. Existing documents that you have that are part of your personnel processes or human resource processes. And then based on all that information, we can set expectations for who would be involved in moving forward and what is everybody's role in that. What would be the investment of time? What resources would we need to get us to that desired result? And then how do we set up the organization that we can co-create together? We do the discovery process to be sure all the voices are in the room that need to be, so that we have the information that's most important to help us move forward. So when we get to the point of, okay, what are the solutions and how do we move forward? We want to be sure we have the best team together from all of our organizations to do that. So that is the key components of the discovery process. More specifically, some of what we'll be involved in doing during this discovery phase is, one of the first things is the strategic discovery workshop. So that will be a workshop with all of you, the tribal council members, to talk about what is, when you think about the organizational culture of the tribal government, what is most important? What do we want to keep from that culture and really emphasize and grow? What else are we thinking about as we move into the future? And then what are some of the gaps? What are some of the things we need to be thinking about? We then also talk to some of your internal stakeholders, such as the executive leadership, other business leaders who might have expertise or more insight into particular areas of the organization. And then the next piece is the employee survey, which Jessie will go into much detail on. So I want to make sure to give her the time for that so you can ask your questions. So those are the three pieces that are core to what we'll do to gather information that we need to help make recommendations. We're in the process of scheduling the strategic discovery session. That will be a half-day session, and it is a workshop. Our goal is to hear from you what's most important to you. So we'll facilitate that and gather that information and then move into the stakeholder interviews after that. So another piece we may do, pending what comes out of that strategic discovery session, the interviews and the survey, is delve deeper into a particular area, and perhaps it's a particular part of the organization or a particular topic. And we would do that through focus groups. So that we'll see what comes out of the three main pieces. And then if we feel we need to do that, that would be a decision we'd make with you. We'll move forward with some focus groups. Okay. So once we come to the end of the discovery process, some of what you can expect from us are gaps that we've identified, obstacles to success, to getting to that desired future state, and then propose solutions. And what's important to understand is we will provide proposed solutions based on what we've seen, but our real goal is to bring you the findings and then co-create that with you. So we'll have ideas, but we want to talk together about what makes the most sense and how can we best move forward. So some of those possible solutions would be related to consulting, training, coaching, different assessments that might help. We've done a lot of assessment as part of the discovery, but there may be other areas where we could delve deeper, and then facilitating some of the solutions. We do want to offer quick hits that you would be able to do yourself. So what types of things would you be able to do on your own? And then we'll also have other options that we may be able to help you with. So, and then also what would the timeline and the investment be based on those choices? Okay. So then we'll take a look at the timeline. So we did kick off, if you look at month 1, we kicked off at the end of March. And now we're bridging month 2 and 3. We're coming to the end of month 2 and entering into month 3. What we focused on since the kickoff is really developing the different pieces of the discovery process we'll use. As an example, Jessie has been working on the survey and getting that ready. I've been working on the strategic discovery session. I'll have a co-facilitator working with me that day. And we also have a producer who's a Zoom expert who will make sure everything runs smoothly for us, since it is a workshop and there'll be some different pieces to that, breakout groups and things like that. And so we've been preparing and designing that session. We're now moving into the phase where we hope to deliver those, the survey, that session, and then after that move on to the interviews, the internal stakeholder interviews. So by month 5, we will have our findings together and be able to report out to you what has been uncovered during that discovery session. And then that's when we get to looking at and co-creating together what that next step will look like. So, okay. Any questions before I go to, I just have one more slide before I turn it over to Jessie, but that's kind of a summary of our overall project discovery phase. Anything you'd like to know more about or any questions?
Questions for was this part of the presentation? Any questions? Not seeing any at this time yet.
Okay, Great, thank you. And always, we're available afterward too, if anything comes up, any questions come up, and then also at the end of Jesse's presentation, we'll have opportunity for questions as well. And so the last thing we just wanted to share with you is this is the Aligned at Work leadership model. We're focused on the people in the organization, creating a healthy work environment, do as I do leadership, so leading by example, and aligning positions and people based on that future state vision. So just to give you a sense of where we're focused or how we operate as a team at Aligned at Work. So that is an overview of the overall discovery process. Jesse, I will now stop sharing and hand it over to you to take a look at the culture survey, which is very exciting. Jesse's done a lot of work to put this together.
All right, thank you, Ada. I appreciate it. I'm also going to share my screen so that you all have something to look at other than my face. Give me just a moment here. So the reason I wanted to take a little bit of your time today to go over the organizational culture quality audit is because organizational culture is something that isn't always well understood. And there are many ways that we can go about measuring organizational culture and understanding it and discussing it. And I think it's important that all of us that are involved in the process of shaping the tribal government's next steps have the same understanding, not only of how we go about measuring the culture elements, but also what model we're actually going to be using. And so we're going to start with a quick overview of the FIC culture model. Now, this is a model that we developed over the last couple of years as we worked with many different clients. And it is, at its base, it's organizational culture in its entirety. Within organizational culture, there are 3 culture dimensions that we've been able to identify, which is the social culture, how we feel and fit in an organization, the ideological culture, which is the underpinnings of the decision-making that goes into any organization's efforts and work. And then the outcome of that is operational culture, and that's how we actually function as an organization. Now, within each of these 3 culture dimensions, there are 6 culture elements. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over all of them in detail. But again, the idea is that these culture elements allow us to define and identify specific culture qualities for each of those elements. And that's what we're actually going to be measuring with the organizational culture audit is we are going to be measuring these culture elements to define and identify the culture qualities that exist within your organization as a whole. Now, when we talk about organizational culture, it is very easy to assume that we're only talking about the macro culture, the organization as a whole. And this is where most culture surveys, culture audits focus at that macro level, at the organization as a whole. But what we know is that organizational cultures actually consist of a number of microcultures that operate together either well or in conflict with one another throughout the organization. So these might be at the department level, at the division level, at a branch level, at a team level. And each of these needs to be able to be understood as an independent entity within your organizational culture. Now, there's a second component here that we need to talk about, and that is the difference between intended and permitted cultures. So we all know what kind of culture we want to create for our employees. That's our intended culture. It's what we put down in policy. It's what we communicate to others. It's what we tell people we want to see in our organization. The permitted culture can exist at the macro culture, but it most frequently exists within the microcultures. And permitted cultures are those that we allow because we weren't adhering to the culture elements that we put forward as being our primary objectives. We didn't enforce our culture. We didn't communicate that particular part of our culture very well, and we weren't paying attention to it. And one of the reasons these permitted cultures can exist is because we don't know what we're looking for, and we're not looking deep enough into an organization. And so this kind of nested model of macro culture, microculture, intended, permitted, down to these culture dimensions, social, ideological, operational cultures, and then into our culture elements, it gets very, very deep. And this allows us to really take a look at your organization in a very holistic manner and get a full and detailed idea and concept for what your organization looks like. And the way this works is we capture the employee culture experiences. And because we're deploying this to the entire organization, we're getting feedback from all levels of the organization, top to bottom, side to side, across all dimensions. And we use a set of robust demographic questions to identify specific identities of the employees, which we can then use to really take a look at how the organizational culture is impacting individuals. It also allows us to see what the macro culture qualities are. And those would be those for each of the culture dimensions, we have 6 elements. For each of those 6 elements, we have 4 possible qualities that your organization can embody. And that allows us to also see it at the microculture, because one of the demographics that we're going to ask about is the organizational demographics. What department are you in? How long have you been with the organization? You know, these kinds of questions. And this allows us then to see what those specific cultures are. And then we can see the alignment between the permitted and the intended culture. So part of the discovery process that Ada is going to be managing is understanding what the culture you want to create is. And then we can use what we're finding to see how close we are and identify those gaps that she was talking about. As you can see here, there is a small graphic that shows that microcultures can be aligned with the permitted culture, but not with the intended culture, and vice versa. And so when we're able to identify that, we're able to help guide the efforts to create the cultures within the microcultures that we need in order for everything to work smoothly together and create the overall macro culture that we intend. So how do we actually do this? Well, we use a web-based survey platform. It's the Nuance Culture Survey Platform. It is a part of the FIC Human Resource Partners, company. We built privacy in by design. So the first thing is we're not going to ask your employees for their name, their title, their email, nothing that's going to identify them as an individual. The second thing that's built in here is that our survey team is the only team that sees the raw data. They then utilize our algorithms to identify from that data what the culture qualities are for each element within each dimension. That information is then put into a report that is given to our consulting team. And then our consulting team uses that to bring the recommendations forth to the tribal government. So as you can tell, this privacy by design means that there are multiple layers between the information that an employee gives and the data and the responses that the organization is going to see, that the tribal government will see. And this allows all of the employees to honestly answer without fear of being known as an individual who said something that may not be what we want to hear. Now, the next thing we need to talk about is the fact that this is organization-wide. This is going to be every member of the tribal government, top to bottom, the entire organization. We're going to try to achieve a minimum of 65% participation in this survey. That's useful data that we can actually use as reasonably accurate. Our goal is to get over 75, which is what we consider to be actionable data, which is very accurate. And then if we can, we'd like to get over 90%, because at 90%, we have no questions as to the accuracy. We know it's accurate. Now, the reason we might not get to 90 is because it's a survey. Not everyone's going to want to do it. And we're going to need buy-in, not just from the personnel department, but from the tribal government, from the department heads, from the division heads. And one of the ways that we've done that we help with that is that we've provided Renee and her team with some communications that they can use to help promote and discuss and encourage people to participate. When they're taking the survey, they're going to be offered a series of forced choice questions. And that basically means that we don't give them the option of saying, I don't know, or I'm unsure. They have to decide whether they agree or disagree, and to the degree of which they disagree or agree. In this manner, we are able to get a clear indication of what a culture element is, and what the experience is, because there's no equivalation here. There's no waffling. You're going to say, I agree or I disagree. Once the core questions are answered, we begin the demographic collection. As we collect the demographics, our third generation logic is going to come into play. And what that really means is that depending on people's responses, we may determine that we need to hear more from them to learn more about their experience in one element or another. They are then offered the opportunity to go deeper and answer those questions. We have this so that people are only being asked the questions that are relevant to their experience, and then have the ability to consent to going deeper and sharing more. This is another way that we protect people's ability to engage with the survey without fear of becoming known in some way. We make this very much we're only going to ask the questions you need to know. They're all based on the core. They all link back to one of the culture elements, culture qualities, culture dimensions, and it's consent-based when we get down to the demographics. Now, I wanted to show you all how we represent the information to the organization. What we do is we identify the quadrant on a graph that correlates with specific culture qualities. And then based on the responses that we get and the algorithms that we run so that we make sure that we're getting the information communicated to you all properly, we're able to place them on these quadrants. And these are the social culture qualities here. And you can see a little hexagon, which, as you can tell, is part of my brand. You can see a hexagon in each of the quadrants for each of these. And this allows us to know what the culture quality is, but also whether or not you're in a threshold area. So are you on the threshold of becoming of having a culture of belonging, or are you on the threshold of a culture of concealment or social trepidation under authenticity? And so this allows us to show not only where you are, but also allows us to see how close you are to becoming something else. We show the ideological culture qualities the same way. Again, there are 6 of those. There are 4 culture qualities for each of the elements within this dimension. Oops, my button didn't go. And again, we show these for the operational culture qualities. So you're going to see the same information, the information presented the same way for each of these culture dimensions. And the reason we do this is so that you've got this very quick, easy way of seeing where you are. Now, this doesn't give you a whole lot of information. So what we do is we actually create a report that gives you this graphic so that you can see what this looks like, where you are, and how close you might be to one of the other culture qualities. We then list the culture quality that exists, any cautions that may be warranted for this placement, and then if it's got a threshold that it's on, we talk about what that threshold is. And so this is what we give to our consulting teams and gets passed forward to our clients. And in this way, you can see that none of the information that the employees are going to offer us is shown as individual content that you can then see and identify individuals for. Now, throughout the process of discovery and through the responses that we get in the organizational culture quality audit, we're going to identify challenges and opportunities for the organization. Now, I've got a list of them here. You can see that the first one is highlighted. I did that because that one's going to be the thread that I follow for the rest of this, simply so that we've got a single thing that we're talking about. When we have an identified challenge, here we have unclear roles. This came to light for this particular company, both through the discovery phase, but also in the responses that we saw in the organizational culture quality audit. We were able to, through the culture quality audit, identify that hierarchy, communication, authority, and collaboration were all contributing ideological qualities to having unclear roles in this organization. Now, for this particular one, there were no contributing operational qualities. You can see that the one at the very bottom has a list of operational qualities, but not all of them are going to have that. But what we can see is that having the unclear roles and having those discrepancies in the hierarchy, communication, authority, and collaboration for unclear that led to unclear roles had the negative impacts on psychological safety, efficiency, well-being, and agility. So we're able to show through our culture quality audit how these elements in culture link back to the challenges that are being identified. And that allows us to see how everything is connected. Now, this is a very pretty picture, but it's also a confusing mess. So we don't typically create these for clients. This was created specifically to show you how we can look at things and see how they're all interconnected. So in this, you can see that we're still talking about defining roles and responsibilities, which is the solution to the challenge that was presented. You also see in the upper right-hand corner that we call this a stage 1 action. At FIC, we sometimes say you should do these things in certain orders, and then we give them stages so that you know when to do them in. What we actually do through Aligned at Work for you all will depend entirely on what we're learning and how we think is best to go forward as a team when we make our proposals. So you may not see this exact language. What I want to show you next, though, is how we might actually show you some of this information so that it's understandable and actionable, because that last image, pretty as it was, is not actionable. So action equals impact. If our action is to define the roles and responsibilities, what we've learned through the organizational culture audit for this organization is that the first level of improvement that the organization needs to see is in their hierarchy, their authority, and their agility. As those improve, a second level of improvement is going to begin, and that will happen in their communication, their collaboration, and their efficiency. And as those improve, a third level of improvement will be seen, which is to the well-being and the psychological safety, which were the elements we noticed as being negatively impacted by having a lack of defined roles and responsibilities. Now, with this particular organization that we used as the model here, there are a couple things that you should know. This was done entirely by FIC. Aligned at Work was not involved, so the language here is all ours and was specific to this particular client where we were using this level 1, this stage of improvement. So we had 4 stage 1 recommendations, which would have had a first level improvement of hierarchy. There were 2 more recommendations in stage 2 and another one at stage 3 that would all improve hierarchy. So when you look at this picture and you see the first measure versus second measure, I want you to understand it's not just the defining of the roles and responsibilities that contributed to this movement. This was multiple different things. Now, their first stage recommendation work began about 6 months after they were presented with the measurement of the organizational culture quality audit. So that gives you a timeline for when they started to do their work. Now, the culture audit is designed to be deployed about once a year. So when you look at these measurements and you realize that they were taking between 4 and 7 actions, you can see that they moved from a place of anarchy where things were very chaotic. People were doing things without understanding why or whether or not they were supposed to. And they were moving into what's called a decentralized hierarchy, which meant that people's roles were defined and they had a clear understanding of what they were supposed to be doing, but they didn't necessarily yet have the organizational structure around them to have a unified process of doing certain actions. And that was something that they were still working on improving. So as you can see with the culture quality audit, as you implement recommendations that come from our team and work through the process, future measurements will start showing the improvements. And this is how we actually take culture and make culture initiatives measurable in a way that can be seen as real and tangible results. Now, I know that I gave you a lot of information there. Again, this was designed to kind of be a primer so that you have a way of understanding how we're going to go about talking about organizational culture, how we understand it, and how we measure against that model to help make our recommendations to you for the tribal government's culture initiatives, including the policy work that we're engaged in. And if there are questions, there typically are, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions for Jessica? Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how many tribal governments have you worked with before?
I will be honest, this will be the first tribal government that is utilizing the culture quality audit. Aligned at Work has worked with a number of tribal organizations prior to bringing us on board to do these organizational culture quality audits.
Okay, thank you. And it is a huge task and we are unique. And good luck.
I appreciate that.
Any other questions for Jessica? Don't see any at this time.
All right. Well, I thank you for allowing us this opportunity to talk to you about the discovery process, the overall project, and the organizational culture quality audit. As Ada had said earlier, if there are questions, we are happy to answer them. Both Renee and Lisa have our contact information, and I'm sure they'd be happy to make sure that they get any questions you have to us.
Okay. Oh, Carol has one more.
Yeah, I wrote down this when you first started talking about the culture. And, in our organization, there's always the culture of the workforce. And then, of course, the culture of the people that are here, that have been here for a long, long time. I'm just wondering, in our organization that goes hand in hand. And I'm just wondering, I'm sure you're aware of that and I'm sure you've been told. But yeah, you'll have to take that into consideration. Or do you have a response to that?
Absolutely. So yes, the organizational culture will be informed by tribal culture, and it will be impacted by the longevity of the people who have been with the company, with the organization the longest. And so our goal is to show you what the organization looks like, help the organization understand how making certain changes are going to impact that and what those changes might bring, and to bring everything into alignment so that the organizational culture and the tribal culture that people are bringing into the organizational culture work well together and are more aligned than they may be at the moment. We honestly don't know what that alignment looks like at the moment, but we will start to see that through the discovery process and through the results of the organizational culture audit.
Well, I think the culture of the people is something we live every day. It's not about learning something. So, yeah. So anyway, thank you.
And that is, if I could just add just one comment, that as part of the discovery process that I'll be working on, particularly the discovery session we'll do and the interviews, one thing we want to do is make sure we look at honoring what are the things that are working really well and capture those and ensure we're keeping those consistent. So I think that's something we're definitely we want to be sure we capture and build on what is there that's working well, that's such a part of the culture and the way you're operating now and the important work that you're doing.
All right. Any other comments? Seeing none. Thank you, Jessica and Ada, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Anything else, Renee?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. That's all, we have today. Just give them a chance to give the overview of the project and, you know, we're just getting started and they're gonna be doing, policy reviews of our current ordinance, grievance procedure review. So this is just a portion of what they're working on. So, and they've got a lot of those, in their hands and they're working on them now. So.
All right. Well, we look forward to our relationship and have a positive outcome.
Yes. Thank you.
We will take a 5-minute break and we'll have Jordan on next. 5-minute break. You could, try to add another per capita and disperse. I think that the thing that we have coming forward that's gonna be relief is the extra revenue we'll get from EKI for the consumer low-cost block of power, selling that on the open market. We'll know after the full year of it being operational, how much money we have to give out. All right, we'll come back into session. And Jordan, you're up. Do you need executive session?
Yep, that would be good.
Okay, well,
Okay, and I think we could just deal with the consensus, the council. Did you all have a chance to look at the letters from the legal department from this morning's presentation? Hello, hello. Dixon and Hot Springs. Did you get a chance to look at the letter from the legal department this morning? There were 2 letters they were asking for council approval. So we're good? Okay, Bing and Carol? Okay, yeah, if you could just give me those letters, we'll get that taken care of. And then. Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. Lisa and staff, if you guys want to come on up. Joe, come join us, please. We've been. All right, good to see Joe back. Had a much needed vacation. Well, Lisa, I want to thank you and your staff for joining us. We all look forward to your quarterly meetings and updates, especially after the legislative session. That's always we always look forward to those updates, and I know it's been pretty exciting in Helena these last 90 days, but here we are.
Okay, is it on? Yeah, it's on?
Yep, you're
Good.
Mic
Thank
is
you,
hot.
Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here and council members. We always love coming. It seems like we were trying to think about past experiences and everything's just blended in now because we've been coming for so long. So we really appreciate always your willingness to meet our schedule as we travel around. Today's our first day of our spring tribal tour. So we have, we'll visit all the reservations, all the urbans, and all of the IHS facilities in the area office over the next 3 weeks is our plan. So with me today, I'd like folks to introduce themselves, but for the record, I'm Lisa Evers. I'm the Tribal Relations Manager for the department, located in Helena. So, Casey.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you guys for having us. My name is Casey Peck. I am the IHS Tribal 638 and Urban Indian Organization Section Supervisor for Medicaid with the Health Resources Division.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I'm Kelsey Costello. I'm the Business Process Specialist and the Tribal Liaison between the 4 tribes that process their own Medicaid. And I'm located in Billings. Thank you.
Yeah, so Kelsey's here to take all the hard questions. It's her first visit here, actually. So
we're glad to have her and really just wanted to, you know, we come because we want to provide you information and updates, but most importantly, to be available to you with any questions or concerns or comments you want to share or ask for me to pass on to those in Helena. So, we've prepared a packet for you of some information. We're prepared to talk about those things if you'd like us to, kind of go through them, but I hope you'll ask questions, anything you have in the middle of, doesn't matter when, honestly. We really want to. Great, thank you. So the first thing is the organizational chart, which you guys have, you see this every time I come or every time we see each other at a meeting. And it always has a little bit of change to it. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention some recent changes. This feels old. I know it's only April 17th dated, but it feels old because we just have some constant changes going on. As you can see, you know, when you watch the legislature, and I know you folks are heavily involved in that, the funding package the agency asked for, the governor's initiative around mental health, those kinds of things, will have a huge impact on our agency at some point. I think there was a bill that asked for $300 million to address mental health, the state hospital, different things like that. So we'll start seeing some of those changes, assuming that passes through.
Okay, Lisa, before we go any further, Jennifer, is Patricia Hibbler available to join us?
No, she's not in this week.
Okay, thank you.
So I think a couple things to make mention to you. One, we have a new deputy director that has started. So in the blue on the left side top, David Gerard is our new deputy director. So probably 3 weeks into his job. So that brings someone to assist the director in moving issues and you know, seeking resolutions on things that they're focused on in our agency. Again, we're a large agency, over 3,000 employees. And if you compare us to other states, we're considered a super agency, having public health, Medicaid, and human services all together. I think that's kind of rare anymore, but we continue to be that way in Montana. So the next big change, I would say, so the reporting structure of the Public Health and Safety Division, those brown folks at the bottom, now that's a change in reporting structure, moving from reporting to the department director to now the deputy director. So that's a good change, I think. Public health and safety has often worked a little bit siloed, so it's good to see them being accountable to the whole department and everybody kind of integrating together. I think that's really, really important. So that's good to see. And then I think the biggest change is over in the purple, folks. And so again, you've heard a lot about this with the governor's initiative around mental health and the focus on that. So really taking all those dark purple boxes out of the middle of the purple section, kind of separating them. Those are the 7 facilities that we run. Montana State Hospital, Montana Chemical Dependency, those kinds of facilities that really are 24/7 and need much more focus than they've had in the past. So building a lot of infrastructure around that. And you can see, if you've ever looked at this before, many of those positions weren't there. And that's where you might have heard about the A&M contract. Alvarez and Marcellus is a contract that the department is also contracting with around all of this. They did the provider rate study, those kinds of things that you've heard about in the legislature. So I think you'll see a lot more changes in there as they build this just deep infrastructure to be able to provide solid services, kind of shore up what we have and maybe potentially grow depending on the needs of our state. And then the final one in that middle purple is the Health Resources Division. That's where Casey lives under that division. We now have an acting administrator there in Mary Lemieux. Darcy Wiebe was the previous one, and she has been here before. She left state government and went to work for a private company. And so Mary has about 20 years in Medicaid, so we're glad to have her there in an acting position. And then Kelsey is over in the middle of the yellow folks under Human and Community Services. That group of folks do Medicaid eligibility, SNAP, TANF, run the OPA offices, et cetera, et cetera. So we got rid of branch managers. We know, so people always thought we were a bank because we had branch managers. And so they changed the title, so you'll see a change in that to executive directors, and a few name changes, so. So, Mr. Chairman, that's kind of our organizational chart, you know, of course, at that high level.
Any questions? Bing?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lisa, did you say the dark purple was all going to be taken out?
I'm sorry.
I said, did you say the dark purple was all going to be taken out?
No, it already has. It was kind of integrated underneath those folks. So one division administrator would be responsible for 2 facilities, for example. Another would be responsible for 2 more. And so they removed those from under those administrators out into their own separate, and then provided some leadership and structure so that it's a different focus than, you know, doing Medicaid in general or senior long-term care services of running 24/7 facilities.
I was wondering about the chemical dependency center, you know, with all the drugs and whatnot going on. I was just wondering what was going to be happening with that.
I would say a couple of things that would come to mind when we talk about those facilities, including MCDC, because I think that's in my mind, it's pretty interesting. So one thing that A&M, who is this contractor that's helping stabilize those facilities, has started doing reports that we post on the web, kind of performance reports, which are really interesting. And so they've done those assessments. They're posting that information online. And so I go out and look at that information. So in MCDC in particular, it's interesting as we hear the need for services, we're only at about between 44 and 48% occupancy in that chemical dependency center, which is really interesting to me when I hear so much of the need to think that we're only half full, you know, and that presents a challenge for us, right? We can't stay fully staffed planning to serve double the people that are there. So I would imagine some changes will come with that organization. I wonder if they'll even rebrand, you know, as people, I mean, new ideas, right? That's how change happens. So, but they're transitioning is what I would say right now. That's how I would look at it. And when I bring it up at the American Health Leaders and those meetings, just to let people know that as they explore regional, you know, healing center or centers, just, you know, I think hopefully the assessment of going and talking to MCDC is a part of it, so you can understand the challenges we're facing, which are very different than even 2 years ago. So.
Yes, Terry.
Thank you. Funding. Is that a concern at any time, future-wise, to be able to fund these? As you say, you have a lot of employees, be able to keep these programs. I was wondering how you feel about your future funding.
I talked to our CFO and asked her, one, how did we fare? And the session isn't quite over, right? We're just a few days short of it ending. And so we don't have the full picture quite yet, because this is really when all the work gets done right now. And so, but her general feeling is we fared pretty well funding wise in our budget, you know, compared to last time, for example, when my position was cut and the American Indian Health position was cut, that none of that stuff came up this time. So they're feeling pretty good. Our funding is in House Bill 2, but we also have a couple other places, like we have that $300 million, I don't know the bill number, around the mental health focus, and a couple other bills that we have some funding in. But I think in general, I would say she says we're doing pretty well and faring pretty well. The director, what I heard him say yesterday is it's been a good session. I mean, that's his take on it. So I haven't heard anybody that's too worried. We never expect our budget to be fully funded. You know, the governor puts his budget together, brings it to the legislature, it becomes theirs. So there's always a compromise position, but I think the other piece in regards to funding, Terry, I would say is the Montana State Hospital. So, you know, we did lose our CMS certification for that hospital. We're working to get that back. the financial result of that, that's about $33 million to fund that place. So it's in our budget as an agency, in our base budget, but we've lost the ability to bill Medicaid for that and get reimbursement back to the state general fund. So,
I just get a little concerned when, thank you for your answer. When you're not able to fill all those positions down the road, then they say, well, maybe you don't need all those positions.
you're right. It depends on the take, right? When at the time how people are trying to utilize the information to get to where they want to get to. It can work both ways, but it is a challenge for us. Staffing is a huge challenge, and these folks know it because they do the hard work and do the jobs of 2 or 3 people because we're having a hard time filling positions. And we can always go back to COVID and the change that it created in our society in Montana, but it's very real. Some people do not want to work in facilities. They want to work from home. That's real for people. And we have some ability to do that in some of our positions. Some no, some mostly, but not everybody fully, really. So, and that's changing. That's a game changer. And then I think things got upside down with, the nursing staff, for example, and the contracts we had to pay at the double to triple the wages just to get nurses to be in our facilities. So I don't know if things will adjust. I don't know if housing will adjust. I don't know if those things will readjust eventually.
So are we in a position to give support? To make sure that we identify that we're supporting you and your program, and until you get those positions filled, that there is a need for them?
The tribe has been very helpful already to this point. So one of the things we do in the legislature is we got our tribal input day back. And a couple of you folks came on and testified, came to Helena and testified. Jennifer testified, Lynn testified. That was really helpful to show back. It's important to show up, right? And we had lost that opportunity last session, and the director supported getting that back. And so we filled 2 hours. We had 22 people come and testify from tribes, and that's really helpful. That's where we got to show our support. And then you've got to think ahead to 2025 because Medicaid expansion is sunsets in June of 2025. And so that's more than just showing up for the one day for a couple hours, right? It's getting prepared. It's because only you know what it's done for the individuals on your reservation, your facilities. I mean, you're just opening the Ronan clinic. That's pretty awesome. And we know that Medicaid's part of funding that, and then, Medicaid expansion impacts your THIP program because we pay a per member per month, and being eligible for Medicaid is when you get, that's one of the criteria. So it has a huge impact, and only you know your story as well as individuals that have received services that maybe they couldn't before, So there's lots to share, but what you share in a short amount of time, I think is the challenge, honestly.
Bing has a question.
Fingers by chair. I can't get over this purple section down here. Time I look at it and go down the line there, it's kind of alarming, to see the veterans' homes too are maybe in jeopardy, and it's kind of hard to believe that because, these people serve their country and everything else, and now that, wonder what's going to happen with them,
I would say, I think the 2 that I think are needing a lot of work, the 3 I would say is the state hospital, of course, as we try to get our CMS certification back, get that stabilized. We've had a lot of press and media on that, and you probably read some of that. The chemical dependency center, and then the nursing home care center in Lewistown. I would say those are the 3 that are taking the focus. The other, I have not heard of any kind of risk to at all being, in one of those, we have a contractor that runs that. And so I have not heard of funding being an issue for any of those. I think the department felt like they got good support in the legislature around those. And I think the legislature wants to give folks a try to fix things and better and improve. And so I think the funding in those cases is still fine. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, of course, and still providing services at the same time, but I think people are committed to doing that. We have good staff on place. We've had changes. You've seen we put different people in place. It's just, that's what's going to happen as you try to do these changes. So, but I think we're okay there. So next I would talk about, so really nothing more on the session other than it's still in place. You know, Friday is a 90th day. So I think we're at day 86 maybe today. So I expect that to end soon. And folks are ready for that to end. Folks are tired. Everybody's tired, you know. And it's been an interesting session, but I guess the director said it's been a productive session. And so that's good from his perspective, that he felt like he got some things done. He was supported. We have a budget to get through. So happy that he believes that. That's good. He's a new director, so that's always a good way to end, I think. So not much more there. I think you guys are heavily involved and have seen a lot of the legislation that has come through, so no surprises there. There was 2 attempts to address Medicaid expansion. One I let you know about on email, right, about Trebus's bill to get rid of Medicaid expansion by requiring work requirements. And so that failed eventually because there was $1 billion, probably just almost $1 billion fiscal note attached to that, and people weren't ready to absorb that yet. And so the other attempt was last week. So as you move House Bill 2, which funds the government, the state agencies, there was, when it was on the Senate floor, there was a proposal to not fund Medicaid expansion and eliminated it. That failed, but out of 50 votes, 19 were for it. So it just tells you the kind of work you have ahead of you, right? So that didn't go anywhere, but we figured it would come up in places and you never know. And when it's so late in the process like this, we've lost the ability to talk about it when it's in those kind of places at this late in the game. So happy to hear that seems like we're good so far to 2025, but it ain't over till it's over. Yeah. Right? So a couple more things we're focusing on, of course, is the Medicaid redetermination process. We tried to communicate with you as much as I could around that. So Kelsey can talk a little bit more about that, but important, one, just to thank you for the partnership that we have with you around Medicaid eligibility. As Kelsey said, 4 tribes in Montana, those that run their own TANF program, have entered into agreements with us to do their own Medicaid eligibility. And we know the benefits of that. It's many, 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 many benefits. But most importantly, that individuals have another place to access services. So we appreciate that partnership that you do there. So, but we started the process. April 1st was the start of our process, kind of looking at the next 10 months to get redeterminations done. So a lot of work on our plate. I call them chunks or boxes, and Kelsey, they call them buckets, but we've been through the first bucket, right? We started the first one, notifying folks. We had to break out the work so we could make it manageable. And so folks have received notices, and they have deadlines now, and if they don't respond, then they could potentially lose coverage, those kinds of things. And maybe you could talk a little bit more about that if you would, Kelsey.
Yes, we've sent out pre-notices to let them know that this is coming and to keep your eyes out. We've done text messages. I've been working really close with Patrice and Wayne, who are the eligibility techs here. And they're doing some outreach things and trying to get a hold of people and make sure that they know what's coming. So we've tried to give as much pre-notice as we can.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll catch people before they lose coverage. That's the whole idea there. So we're trying to make sure that we get ahead of the game on that. Like I said, Patrice and Wayne have been great in helping out with that. So I appreciate working with them.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a good job in your newsletters and stuff, getting word out. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff I've seen. So
We advertised and promoted it pretty widespread. We're in contact.
Mike?
contact. So yeah, we've been trying to be very active in getting the word out. So hopefully we'll see the results start turning around here quickly.
So we do expect to have a dashboard up on our website because everybody likes transparency and information available. I don't know what's a part of that yet, but when I get that, I'll share that with you because I think people do have an interest in that, right? How many people are coming off Medicaid because of redetermination, but there's probably a certain amount we expect to come off just because they're no longer eligible. Or would you give some examples that you gave earlier?
Who's not eligible?
Yes, I mean, some of the first pieces that we kind of expected to.
Yeah,
to happen.
so some of the first people in our first bucket would be kiddos that have turned 19, so they're aging out of the children's programs. People that we know are probably over income. Some of them have reported new jobs, but due to the PHE rules, we couldn't take them off. So we know that they're over income. Some of the folks that have turned 65 during this time are now no longer eligible for Medicaid. They're eligible for Medicare. So we have to look at different programs. So we're going to start with that group that we kind of anticipate won't be eligible due to those reasons. We've had a lot of people move out of state, so we have to roll them off as well. And then we start aligning folks who have SNAP and TANF research or certifications coming up. So we'll try to align their Medicaid with those so we can only touch them once and not make them fill out paperwork 5 or 6 times the next month. And we're pushing the elderly, aged, blind, disabled, that group to probably month 4 or 5 just to give them time. We're going to be looking at resources for them. So we need them to be able to gather bank statements, life insurance contracts, all of those resource things that we don't always have easy access to. So we've sent them notices letting them know, hey, start gathering these things. So by the time we get to month 4 or 5 in our lineup, they should have the documents ready to go and make it easier for them to do the process.
Because it takes that long to gather documents. In my world, it does.
Yeah.
I just cringe when someone asks me to find anything. So I mean, I would guess just with what Kelsey said, some of the data might show we're getting a lot of people off, right? But like my son's on Medicaid, but he's moved out of state and he's working and he has insurance. So naturally he's going to be taken off, right?
Yeah.
But I've got to see all the letters come. So it's been kind of fun to see what the department's sending to Medicaid recipients. So yeah, so I think that's moving along as best it can. Of course, the COVID-19 public health emergency, which ends in a few days here, triggers a lot of work that we're doing as well. So we sent you a really, really long, a short letter with a large attachment that talked about the flexibilities, but just because the authority goes away, right, when the public health emergency goes away. So I wanted Casey to talk a little bit about maybe some examples of what we mean by Medicaid flexibilities. And some things we're trying to keep and some things are just go away.
Yep.
So,
All right, so yes, we did get a lot of authority to waive or get rid of certain expectations during the public health emergency. And now that that's ending, we've got to put all these things back in place. So there's a lot of work going on, along with a lot of communication, which unfortunately is like a 25-page spreadsheet of all of the information that we're working on. Sorry, Joe. That was what we got it down to from where it started. So just trying to be really transparent. We also do a thing on the Medicaid side where we put out provider notices for everything that we kind of change. They're out on our website. Joe and his team also know how to look for those. But so there's a ton of information being bombarded to all of our health departments right now. And so the ones that I think really have an impact and are important is going to be one, we waived reporting requirements for certain programs, and that included THIP during the time that we were in the public health emergency.
Okay.
Excuse me. So you weren't required to submit your monthly or 6-month report, whatever you were doing at the time. So that will go back into place. So we sent a letter about that. So those reporting requirements will be going back in. Another one that will have a large impact on Medicaid members is going to be the pharmacy flexibilities that we put in place. So there was the ability to not have to get prior authorization for certain medications. Certain medications you could refill early. Some of them you could get a 90-day supply. So those are going to go away. Medications are going to require prior authorization again. You won't be able to refill early. And I think there might be a couple that you can still get 90-day supplies, but most of them are going to go
When is
back
this
to
gonna be
30 days.
implemented?
May 12th.
May 12th.
May 12th. Yep. It's a pretty hard stop. May 11th ends and like all of our authority goes away. So May 12th, that will go into place. One of the positives that we were able to keep on the Medicaid side was the telemedicine and telephone option. So when we came out last spring and fall, we kind of asked people what was working for them and some of the flexibilities that we had received and some things that they would like to keep. And interestingly, the #1 response was that being able to provide services by telephone was really working. It was having a great impact. And so we were able to keep that. So that's a positive on that side, is that we were able to keep that you can provide services by telephone.
And bill for them.
And bill for them. So that was a good one.
You gotta leave the and bill
I know.
part. You gotta make sure you add that.
That's important. That's important. So we had THIP was going to be a big one because we have to report. Pharmacy was going to have a big impact. And then you guys are also passport providers. So passport, if you send somebody out to go see somebody else, you send a referral. That was waived during the public health emergency. That will go into place. So there's just a lot of requirements that happened before the public health emergency, and they will be back in place on May 12th.
Mr. Chair, I could just add a couple of things to Casey's information. So we've prepared an internal letter to our community about the change in the 90-day prescription. So that'll be going out to our patients here this week about the change in the protocol that we're switching back to a 30. You may hear something about that.
Going out this week?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the other thing is during the transition or during the interim when we were under the emergency, we had transitioned THIP from the Daphne software package to Epic. So I think we're well prepared to begin meeting the reporting requirements for THIP going forward. So I think we're prepared for that. Those patient encounters or those interactions are well documented in Epic. Jamie has implemented a pretty good program to be prepared to re-implement them and meet the reporting requirements. We're in good shape there.
Okay. All right, Joe, thanks for that, because those pharmacy changes are we'll be hearing from the people.
Yes, you will.
You'll be hearing.
So yeah, it's critical that we get those out as soon as possible.
Yeah, that was very convenient, even for all of us, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, as far as the reporting, I think that starts July 1st. We've given you some time, sent notice out, so you'll report on the first full month of June, report July and July, after July 1st. So we've given you a little time there, but we stay, Casey and her team stays in touch with Jamie and you folks about THIP a lot, so. So next is the 4E congregate care changes, and I just wanted to bring that up. I recently sent that letter to all of you, certainly by mail to the tribe, and then I also emailed all of you that. That one I think that has impact to you folks, from what our folks in our Child and Family Services Division indicate, that you do put kids in congregate care. And so, the letter explained fully, really closely and detailed about how those changes are going to impact you on July 1st. So that one if you hadn't had a chance to look at that, I would recommend you to look at that, because we've been absorbing the cost. because we had a grant and that's how we chose to do it for states and tribes for kids in care, but that fund is depleted now, so we're not able to do that any longer. And so there's some limitations of what gets paid after 14 days and, it's complicated, but it's pricey too. So you might want to be mindful of that one. And if our folks can be helpful or provide any information, just let us know. But I just wanted to bring that one to your attention. The next one, I wanted to just give you an update on the child support services. So in our yellow folks, we have a child support services division. Christy Twardowski is the administrator of that. You guys might remember her coming here with me a lot when she was in a different division, but she's now leading that division. And part of that work as a division administrator in that division is we work with the 4 tribes that do their own 4D programs. There's 4E and 4D and 6 and 7 and all that kind of stuff. But so 4 tribes do their own child support programs, and CSKT is one, Fort Belknap, Blackfeet, and Chippewa Cree are the others that do it. So the department started years ago by doing summits, and so every 6 months the state hosts it one time, and then the next tribe hosts it the next time. So we just hosted it last week, so all 4 tribes came, and Hank was over there. So we did some training, we had some good discussion, we got updates from the tribes. So wanted to let you know that CSKT will host it next time in October. I think mid-October is what they're planning. So we'll be over here for that. It's just a good way for our folks to stay connected as we share the work. And so I think they've proven to be really good as we have new leadership changes there. And so tribes are adjusting to our new leadership change, and people have to build relationships and do all that kind of stuff. And so far, I'm happy with the progress we're making there. The national conference is in July in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The tribes have asked the state to come because the state has never attended those. And so I will go, and then one of the bureau chiefs in the division will go as well. So we want to support the tribes and the work that you're doing. So we will be there for that. So we're excited to listen. We think there's some things we could do. There's some models with other states about, one particular model is a better working document about how the state and tribe will work together. And it's fairly detailed, whether we're sending transmittals, requesting information, or requesting assistance in collecting. It's complicated work. So we hope to be able to get something like that done. And in the end, it would be an individual agreement between us and you and us and Chippewa Cree, and because we like to make those specific to each tribe. So we're working on that as well. A couple things that came up I just wanted to let you know about is the feds just had a tribal consultation around child support and the match that's required of each tribe. So when you're running a comprehensive child support service program, which you folks do, you're required to provide a 20% match of non-federal money. And so that's often provided through cash or in-kind services to meet your match. And that has proven to be a burden to programs expanding or retaining staff and doing the work that's required. And so the feds have published a Federal Register notice on April 21st. They published that seeking comment from folks about eliminating that match. And so they have asked us, the tribes last week asked us if we as a state would provide a letter of support of that and talk about the benefits that it would have to the 4 tribal programs. So I put that request into our director. I hope that we're able to do that. I think it goes a long way. It means a lot. So I'll keep folks posted on that. But I also think I think it could be pretty cool if all 4 tribes wrote letters, talking about the benefit and what that would do, and the state did as well. I think we come in strong together talking about why they should do this.
Good.
To you folks, it seems like maybe the value of the 20% match was around $80,000, and maybe that comes through in-kind from the courts. For Blackfeet, they have 10,000 cases. And that's just under $500,000 for them, just in the match alone. So, and I don't know what the value is for Chippewa Cree or Fort Belknap, but Fort Belknap, Sishorn, if any of you know, Sishorn has been pushing it. So we're trying to find a way to support that as well. So again, I have that request to the director. The comment period is June 20th, 2023 is the deadline for that. So trying to do that as well. And then the other piece is when they talk about the next tribal summit, wanted to invite the other tribes that are not doing their own programs yet, to invite them to come to your conference and at least expose them to it, because the benefit in the end is to the children, right? That's the end. That's the end result. And so I appreciate the fact that tribes are always willing to provide support to others to build programs that do better for kids and families. So, yeah. So that's a little bit about that. And then the HEART grant. So we had that first 2-year cycle. That next report's due at the end of July. And we got 2 more years of funding. So we'll be sending that first year of $62,500 after the 1st of July. And then we've changed from semi-annual reporting to annual reporting, thank God. So, you know, it's established now. That's meant to be gap funding, again, around mental health services, et cetera, to use for your gaps, right? That and where you're not able to have a federal grant or a state grant or bill Medicaid for.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Joe.
maybe a couple things to share. When we first visited with the state, or they invited us to talk about that, we shared our concerns about reporting requirements. So they listened. As part of this grant, these are fairly straightforward, fairly simple, really manageable reporting requirements tied to this grant. So I appreciate that. They heard us. We shared our comments. They heard us. So they've tried to make those adjustments in the reporting requirements they put on us as grantees. The other thing is that's the grant that's funding the court, the healing court.
Yep.
We were eligible for it. We applied for it and then worked out an agreement with the court system to help them develop that healing court system. So that's the work they're doing. It's funded by this HEART grant.
All right, that's good to know. Yep, thank you.
And, you know, who knows what ends up in the end of what was changed in the legislature, but I know there's a big focus on mental health, of course, and so there may be other parts of that you folks are eligible for. I just haven't seen the final package to know yet, but if I learn anything, I'll certainly share that with you as I usually try to. So, but I know it's a little bit of money, but it sounds like it's helpful in some way for the things you want to do. So, next is in your packet is the consultation agenda for the SNAP consultation on June 7th. So we would, historically, we've done a Medicaid consultation in May and December. It's just kind of falling that way. We do not have a Medicaid consultation scheduled this month. We are in May, right? This month. So, and I think we're in a transition period. We have a new Medicaid director. At the last consultation in December, which the first one I missed, and Casey had to run it because I had a family emergency. It was a little different flavor. Most people showed up online, very few in person. And so we have to think about how we plan those as well, because we know we need that hybrid model to allow both. But we also plan a lot of meals and that with people in person. I believe the in-person conversation is just very different. It is hard to manage online conversations. And I think as Casey brought to my attention today, maybe easier when everybody's online versus some people online and some people, you know, you're trying to manage all of it together. And that there's a lot of pauses and that makes people impatient and that, you know, if they're not familiar with this,
Sometimes impossible.
they get uncomfortable. And so they're ready to move on and we're just waiting for Joe to answer, you know? So, because we know Joe's thinking about it, or, you know, those kinds of things that we're used to that makes us realize others aren't. And so I think we're kind of in a transition, and I don't know if that means, I mean, I appreciate any feedback you guys may have on it. I don't know if that means we do it in person once a year and then we do topic. Maybe we do a 2-hour topic if we have a need to consult. The letters, the many letters we give to you, those are considered consultation, but we believe some of these need to be done differently. And so anyway, if you have thoughts or comments about that, sure, happy to hear that, but no Medicaid consultation scheduled for May. So if you expect that, that's not going to happen. Nothing's being scheduled. So we do have one scheduled for June that we'll be doing. So the agenda's attached. We've taken some time thinking about that. Number one, giving updates to what we talked about last year at the consultation and some of the topics that were brought forth by tribes. So we'll talk about that as well. We are willing to reimburse the tribe for up to 4 representatives to attend. So that's in that cover letter that I sent you yesterday. And then we do have a room block at state rate, which is, you know, at the cost of hotel rates anymore. I don't know how it is over here, but at state rate is a pretty good deal, you know. And we have a hotel reserve for that. But there is a deadline, so I let you guys know about that yesterday. So I'll quit talking and move on to Casey, because in the end, everybody just wants to get to the Medicaid revenue report. That's what I've learned.
And just wants to talk about the money, right? All right. So we do have an updated Medicaid revenue report for our visit this spring.
Okay.
So we do look at them on the state fiscal year. So year one is going to be July of 2021 to June 30th of 2022. And then we are reporting on the first 6 months of state fiscal year 23, which is going to be July 1st of 2022 to December 31st of 2022. And then in the fall, we'll have the full 2 years. Just as a reminder, as you're looking at these, we pull the data out of our system based on date paid. So this is just when those claims got paid, not necessarily when the service was provided. So then the first chart is just a quick glance at your overall payments, year one versus year two, and then breaking them out in the pretty colors between Medicaid, Medicaid expansion, and then all together. Then on page 4 in chart 2, we're also looking at Medicaid and Medicaid expansion together, and we're breaking it down by the service that was delivered. So you can kind of see everything that CSKT has billed for over the last year and a half, and then what the reimbursement amount was for that.
I think for when we look at this, we kind of just say, okay, so the red is a full year, the blue is a half year. Are they at half or more? You know, or does less or none? You know, is that something we should visit more about? And we're going to visit with Joe and his team afterwards, but that's how we kind of gauge some of that. Okay, yeah, you know, things happen. So
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Joe.
I did want to provide a brief explanation about dental. That's a system issue. I think there's in part, Amber can better explain it. In part, it's a form that we can't get submitted electronically. We're working with the state and their contractor conduit to try to resolve a form submittal issue. And then in part, it's in part due to our software package. Dentrix, we found out, is not completing the claims process and not submitting those claims. So we're working on those system-wide issues. It's not.
Well, not wanting to get into the details, but I mean, what's the challenge? Is it just developing a form, or what's the holdup there?
No, I think it's Amber, again, Amber could explain it better, but the state doesn't accept the form that Dentrix creates.
Hello.
Hello.
So with dental claims that need to go to the state, they need to go on it's called an 837I, which is a UBO4 form, and it's a hospital form.
Okay.
And the current program we use is called Dentrix. They do not provide that type of form. However, we have reverted back to RPM. Thank you. However, we have reverted back to RPMS for those. And we also discovered another system error there because it hasn't been utilized in so long. So we finally got RPMS fixed and we're actively billing claims as we speak.
Okay. That was my next question was
So it's coming.
circulating,
we
starting to
just-
circulate.
Yeah.
The check in the mail or that, you know?
I don't know, ask Casey.
Well, good to know, because, I mean, it's really, medical billing is just so complicated, you know, but knowing that you guys are working on it and we got a solution, so it is
Yeah.
what we need to hear.
Just wanted to make sure, it's not a reflection of the amount of dental work going through the
Yeah,
clinic.
so-
It's more of a system issue that we're trying to resolve.
I was just wondering about the dental numbers here on the draft. But anyway. Any
I
questions
think,
from
Mr.
council?
Chairman, we've talked with the tribe a lot about this, knowing the system issues that have been in place for a while. And the tribes kind of kept that plan B with, RPMS, and then they could bill on paper still, right? They could do that, so that would be plan C. So you haven't lost that ability to bill, it's just having to do it a different way and not the ideal way with your new system. Yeah.
Okay, all right, understood. Well, thank you for the work that you do over there. I know it's pretty tough work, but we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So when we go to the next, chart 3 on page 5, this is just breaking down.
What page are you on?
Page 5,
Okay,
chart 3. We're just breaking down those payments, by the months that we're reporting on right now. This just kind of acts like as a little bit like a flow chart. You can just kind of see what the average monthly payment is. If you have big spikes, big dips, that's all that shows you. And then in the next tables on page 6 and 7, we then take that information that we provided on the graphs and break it down even further into months and services, and then the amounts for each service each month. Page 6 and 7, again, is going to be Medicaid and Medicaid expansion together. So you can see in total in that first year, you received a reimbursement amount of $17,486,455. I said that right?
okay.
And then for the first 6 months of this year, you're a little over 11. So really recovering, I think, doing well, recovering from COVID. So it's good to see that you guys are ahead in these first 6 months than where you would have been last year.
Okay. Questions, comments?
We'll forever be in recovery from COVID, I'm afraid, in one form or another.
Probably. And then just for further information, so you guys have it for any reporting or data that you may want to do, we then take that same information and on page 8 and 9, we break it out strictly by Medicaid clients, and then on page 10 and 11 by Medicaid expansion clients. So you can kind of see the difference in your revenue. I might need both bifocals soon.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah, wow, okay. I know, can I borrow yours? You guys have a little bit more of a Medicaid expansion population than a standard Medicaid population, so. And then we get to Lisa's favorite page, because she thinks this is really simplifies it, this is her favorite
Yeah.
page.
The bottom line.
Because then the bottom line, if you're looking on page 12 and you look over on the far right-hand side, you get year 1 and year 2. This also shows you all of your enrollments that we currently have in Medicaid.
So, it's gonna break it down. This top one is for your FQHC services, so all your clinic services, which brings in, the majority of your money. And then you're gonna have, that one's blank, I don't know what that one is. And then you have your pharmacies, you have T-HIP, you have your passport, and then, Medicaid personal transportation. So you can just see, just based on those large categories, year 1 to year 2. And then just for informational purposes, on page 13 and 14, we always like to include all of the currently open and billable services that are allowable in Medicaid and the revenue codes that represent those services.
I love this page too. I'll tell you why. Because when I think when Casey and I first started working together, there was a few lines on one page only. And as we've done our visits with tribes and partners and hear what the challenges are, it's really allowed us to come back and look at things. And so as a result, we've opened up a lot more revenue codes for you to bill. Our most recent being 915, revenue code 915 on the last page. Because we had a consultation and folks said we want the ability to bill for individual therapy and group therapy in the same day, and we didn't allow that. So we made a change and we added that. Because we know people are driving a long ways to come in and maybe could do both appointments in the same day. Just trying to understand the challenges that people have with transportation and accessing services. So it is your feedback that has created these changes. I just want you to know that. So, so now we might be moving to page three of them at some point. So that's exciting.
So let's do.
Thank you, that's good to know.
And then also for just kind of informational, the way that Medicaid works on that last page, we do include information about different provider types, which is how services are provided in Medicaid. So like you can be an ambulance provider, you could be a clinic provider, you could be a pharmacy, a nursing home, that sort of thing. So, excuse me. We've included those kind of on there. And that sort of segues into something else we're working on, just so everyone's aware. Historically, and this whole time, tribes and IHS are lumped together in our system as one provider type 57. And so for those who don't work closely in this arena, they don't understand the difference between IHS and a tribe. And so we have created a separate provider type that is going to be tribal and include all things that the tribes do, separate from IHS, and that's going to be provider type 81. And so we sent a letter in April, kind of talking about how we've got this implemented and set up and what some of our next steps are going to be. And so we will be working with each tribe to take their information in our system and just move it out of provider type 57 to provider type 81. But we're going to be doing that together. So I'm currently just trying to match schedules with everyone so that we can find a time for all of us to get together with Joe and his team to migrate CSKT. But maybe come October when we come out, you won't be listed as provider type 57 anymore. Your own provider type.
I think I was probably a lot of the breaks. Let's wait. We've been talking about this for 4 years. We're finally implementing it. And I was like, wait now, I want this. Will it be seamless? Is there any loss, right? Just talking through all of that. So Casey's got us to a good place with this. Where I've seen one of the benefits internally, for example, if you had Fort Belknap IHS and you had Fort Belknap tribes, both are showing as a provider type 57. So when our Office of Inspector General is doing record checks or whatever they normally do off and on, they were talking about Fort Belknap IHS, but they would send the request to the tribe. Like they didn't understand because there was nothing in the system that showed the difference. That is one of the benefits. You guys don't have that here, but that's one of the benefits, right? That because they don't always call Casey and I and say, are we sending to the right person? We wish they would, but they don't. So that's one of the benefits I see. And then if you went to the Medicaid provider page that Casey has, and you're looking for stuff around what we pay for tribes and IHS, you had to go to the IHS tab. You'll have your separate tab now. So it really, again, further further separation, which is good, because people need that. They just don't understand it enough, and we don't want it to be thought of as the same either.
All right, any questions, comments? Lisa, I know one issue that I've discussed with you in the past is, and you notice that we've been, this council has been interested in providing nursing home services here to our membership. So my question is, I know that Medicaid provides a rate per day for reimbursable expenses. Is that different from every tribe? Do we negotiate our own rate, or is there a rate that's set by Medicaid that all the tribes are utilize?
So the short answer is there is one rate for tribes.
Okay.
One tribal nursing home rate is what we would say. And so we negotiated that probably in 2014 at the time with, first of all, the two tribes that were running their own nursing homes, so Crow and Blackfeet still run their own nursing homes. So what was happening at the time when we were paying the Medicaid reimbursement is the state was absorbing that 35% on the dollar cost because we were paying at the split FMAP rate that the state does in general. And Mary Dalton was the Medicaid director at the time and said, I want to think about refinancing this. So we approached the two tribes and said, if you add this into your 638 agreement, then we can now talk to you about maybe developing a tribal nursing home rate that takes a lot more things into consideration. And we would pay you that rate different than what the other nursing home providers get in Montana. And then she also included a percentage increase or decrease. It's only gone down once, and just a minimal amount that it could change every year. And so that's what we did. So that's what Crow and that's what Blackfeet gets. But if you opened a nursing home, that's the rate you would get. Yeah. What I will tell you, if you listen to the legislature and the worry about the nursing homes continuing to close, it's a lot around that rate. So roughly, most providers get $220 a day. Our tribal nursing home rate, I don't have it right in front of me, $689 or something like that. Like it's 2 to 3 times.
Yeah.
And that has gone down once by $7.11, but every time that was built into our rate. And so most times it's increasing large amounts. So it is one rate for tribes. That's how we built it. So we went to so those two tribes looked at their costs, their needs, that kind of thing. We applied whatever highest IDC rate we could do to that. I think Northern Cheyenne was 35% or something like that at the time. We just took the best of everything, the highest of everything, and that's how we came up with the rate. So CMS approved our initial request minus $3. Yeah, so it's been a good deal. And just knowing that your census is small and hard to fill and, all kinds of those things that are challenging. So, yeah, so it's a good rate. It's a really good rate.
Yes, it is.
So.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming here and providing us with all of this information and all of the work that you guys do. I really appreciate this. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Chairman, I did put in your packet a task order list. We just give that to you because we have a lot of task orders under our master agreement with the tribe. And so I think it's good just to have a list. You can see what's in place and maybe what's coming up for renewal. We only have one pending right now that we sent to the tribe recently. That's the FDPIR, which means commodities to me. But I think we have a pretty good process. They come back to us quickly, and if not, we'll reach out.
Okay.
Because things do get lost in the mail. We still do use a mail system.
All right. Joe?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I just want to compliment Lisa and Casey and Kelsey. They've been great partners for Tribal Health for a number of years, and we really appreciate how proactive they are in getting information out to us and how receptive they are to comments or suggestions we share with them. So it's just been a great partnership, and I can't overemphasize how nice it's been for the last several years. Guess the other thing I wanted, we talked about consultation and meetings here. We're also going to host the THIP meeting this fall, correct, Jamie? So in addition to the child support one, we're gonna host all the tribes and the THIP programs here also. So we may be visiting with you about that. At a health committee meeting.
All right, sounds like a good event. Thank you for that. So Lisa, tomorrow we have the SNAP tribal consultation.
Not tomorrow, June 7th is the SNAP tribal consultation.
Oh, okay, I thought it was, I kept looking at it thinking May 7th. Like,
I'll give me a heart attack.
tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Why aren't you telling us now?
We are starting our tour, so today's our first day. Met with Missoula this morning, and you guys, and then we're staying at Quatucktuck tonight, and then off to Blackfeet tomorrow, and then Great Falls and Little Shell and the urban places there. So that's our next 2.5 days.
Well, Lisa, we always appreciate you coming in, making time to visit with the council here. The information that you provide for us, is something we look forward to, and we know the hard work that you are all doing over there in Helena, and the work that you guys are doing for the tribes, and we truly appreciate that.
Thank you.
And like I said, thank you for being here today.
We appreciate it. And, enjoy it. It's good to see all of you, and you guys all have my personal phone number. Truly, always available for any questions you have anytime. So. Call or text or whatever you want to do.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Carol.
Yeah, I just want to say that, there's no other entity that I know of that does this kind of thing. And you're always on the horn or in the email telling us, you got this coming up. I mean, you're like our big sister, making sure that we're on top of things. And I know Joe's in the loop too. So I just really like what they said, appreciate the hard work, because nobody else does this kind of work for us. And, we don't see everything, but you make sure we do. So thank you.
Thank you. That's what partners do, right? I think that's how I look at it. I think sometimes we have to come and deliver bad news. We just have to sometimes, but that's why we build this relationship, so we can have those honest conversations. So.
Sure, I just want to thank Joe for bringing his staff, because I think it's important for them to hear directly from the state, because sometimes, we can relay messages to them, but of course, if you hear it from me, you're going to get confusion. So I'm glad they're here to listen to what's going on.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Carl. Yes, I also want to commend the tribal health staff, because the work that you do over there is so complex, and I'll never be able to wrap my head around it. And we're very, very fortunate that we have the people that we do working for us, doing that important work for the people. So thank you all.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks, Joe. No, we have one issue that we need to address in executive session. It'll just be 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Go ahead, Martin.
I got a text from Culture Committee. They said they'll be probably feeding right about 3, so we got time. If you
Okay.
want.
All right.
Able.
Thanks, Martin.
And then Charmel, will you get copies right now before when they adjourn? I'm assuming, Len, you'll be signing.
He's signing them right now.
Okay, perfect. Let me know what you need from me, Charmel. Okay, thank you all. Bye.